Now, news broke over the weekend that Ben Hunt has requested a release from the Dragons. His manager said this: he still cares about the players and the team. He's never once mentioned he doesn't like playing with them, but the management have worn him down. Wow. Hunt then confirmed the club is aware of his release. In and amongst this, the Dragons signed Shane Flanagan, who said he wants Hunt there next year. The Dragons then released this statement. Dragons can confirm that today the club received a request from the management of Ben Hunt for a release from his player contract. This request has been denied. Ben is contracted through the end of 2025 and is a big part of the current and future plans of the Dragons as the club builds towards achieving sustained success in the coming years. We're committed to working with Ben to understand and address his concerns as well. We all have the same goal of building a strong and successful club. And now it is also being reported that Hunt is willing to pay $150,000 to get out of his contract. Obviously, we've all got a lot of thoughts of this, but I'll throw to the great Gurino.
I stand solidly with Ben Hunt. If I was Ben Hunt, I'd be doing the exact same thing. You have a look at last year. I know he didn't win a Dalian medal, but I think Betty played well enough to win a Dalian medal last year. Dragons finished 10th. I mean, I don't know what more he could have done for this club for a long time. And I'm at the point of looking at the Dragons going, is it healthy for them to lean on Ben Hunt as much as they do? Is it time for them to cut ties and work out? Like, they've got the players there. They've got Jack DeBellin at 13. They've got Little at 9 who can play. Then they've got these young guys to fill, fullback, halfback, 5'8". Not all divorces are bad, and I think it's time. I just don't. If it hasn't improved up until this point, and if Ben Hunt's given as much as he has, and I mean, the Dragons as a board, it's just mistake after mistake. I can completely understand why Ben Hunt doesn't want to be there, and I know people say it's disloyal. They've got to meet him halfway, and they're just not, in my opinion. I completely stand with Benny, and I selfishly, I want to see him go somewhere else and win a comp. Because if he finishes his career without a premiership, that's a travesty.
Oh, mate. It's a really tough one. It's a really tough one because he did re-sign October 5th last year. So that isn't that long ago. Hook was already under pressure at that stage. I think that this is really a clear case. So usually when a player stops performing well, a club will go, hey, mate, if you want to look elsewhere, we would like you to look elsewhere. And then the pressure gets even more of like, you better look elsewhere. Then it gets even more. And then they start doing things to try and get rid of you. This is almost the reverse where the club isn't performing and Benny Hunt is going to them and saying, you guys are just not good enough. This is the last few years of my career. And I'm not going to cop it anymore. Now, a lot of things have happened in that since he did re-sign. You've got obviously the presentation. That was after that would have been after. The presentation, so he was one of the only one of 5 players that rocked up to that. But the fact that was so poorly managed, I think would have been like, oh my god. Then you've got
the presentation was 2 weeks after.
2 weeks after that, and then you got no admin reportedly rocked up to his 300th game dinner, which to me, when I found that out, my mind exploded. And then you've got the sacking of Anthony Griffin. Now, that's not necessarily the issue. The issue was with how it was handled. And at the time, I personally said it was handled extremely poorly, and I thought Anthony Griffin, deserved a little bit better than that, getting sent off. Basically, they sacked Anthony Griffin while the boys were in training. They had 5 people ready to go media day, and then was it Murdoch Masilla and who was it? The other player that had to... Anyway, another player that isn't a captain having to front questions about their coach that literally just got sacked like 10 minutes ago. And so I'm really torn on this one. Knowing Benny Hunt, and I was with him at the Broncos when he came through, a lot would have to happen for him to ask for a release. He's not that kind of bloke. And I know that's an easy cop-out for people who say, oh, you're Den and you're always on the player's side. I get it. But I can only go off my experience with Benny Hunt. And for him to say, I'm willing to pay to get out here, and we've also got all the evidence that I just mentioned, I would love to see him stay and honour the contract. Or I would love to see them to meet in the middle and him give the club an opportunity to find a player to replace him. But it's not looking good.
And that's for me, like, to use an analogy, like you're at a party and, the couple there that's yelling and screaming, if that's what they're doing in front of everyone, could you imagine what the car ride home's like?
Mate.
Could you imagine what's going on with the Dragons Monday to Friday to the point where Ben Hunt says, I'll pay $150K to not be here?
Oh, mate.
I think we all You know, I don't know Ben Hunt personally, but from, you know, yourself, Jarrell, these guys that do, he's a stand-up bloke. I think it's been very evident throughout his career. If he's at the point where he's willing to pay $150K to not be in that room, I think that tells you all you need to know. And I think if the Dragons are fair income, when he leaves, they need to have an exit interview where they say, you tell us where we fucked up. You be brutal and honest, because that's what they need to do, I think.
Timmy, thoughts, mate?
Yeah, pretty similar to Guru on it in that if Benny's asking to leave that contract, I can understand why Dragons fans would be upset. Why wouldn't you? Losing players being the heart and soul of your side for a number of years now. But he's obviously such a loyal bloke, Benny Hunt. He was with the Broncos for about close to 10 years. He got the big money contract offer from the Dragons, but I believe he still wanted to stay with the Broncos, and they sort of made the decision to throw the money at Anthony Milford. Sweet. So he was not forced out of the Broncos, but essentially could have stayed there, been a one-club man. Went to the Dragons. He's been with them for, 5, 6 years, whatever it's been. And I just look at that poor bugger's face after every single game that he plays in a tough 2, 3, 4 years for the Dragons, and he's just so dejected. And why I think, diehard Dragons fans need to cut him some slack, and I hope they do, is because every single game in his entire career for that club, he goes out and busts his ass and gives everything that he can to them. The fact that he re-signed late last year, that's the sticking point. It's like it hurts a little bit.
Yeah, that stings me a little bit.
He's done that, and as you said, Kempy, Hook, while has been sacked in the meantime, he was on his sort of last legs at the club anyway, even when he did re-sign, so that can't have come as a massive shock. So that's a disappointing side of it, but I think Ben Hunt has so many runs on the board of being a loyal bloke to his club, to his mates, and all that sort of thing that, I'm disappointed for the club, but I can see why he's doing it.
Yeah, and look, and to be fair, from a fan and club's perspective that are filthy at this, he wasn't always playing this kind of footy when he was at the Dragons. Yeah. There were years when he was playing pretty poor footy, and there were calls for him to get moved on, and he's on too much money, and he still got paid that money. So that's a fair argument. If you go say, hang on a sec, there were at least a year or two where he wasn't playing up to the value of 1.2 or whatever he was on. And I think that's a pretty fair argument. I will say, though, I'm just a bit surprised that the Dragons haven't used this as an opportunity to go, okay, we've got the perfect marketing or goodwill in regards to this is where we just make the big call. Sullivan and Amon are our future. Sloane's at the back. We got Little. Now to our fans, we can say he wanted to leave, so they don't look bad. And you know what I'm saying? It's almost he's not. Look, if a player doesn't want to be there, he's not going to be there long term. It's not going to happen. So I just don't know why they went public with all this in regards to the information and didn't keep it private and say, Benny, we just need time to replace your massive contract. Give us 8 weeks or whatever it is. And then to the fans, they can say, Ben requested a release. We met in the middle. We are diving in with Sullivan, Little, Sloane, and Amon, and moving forward like that.
And this is probably example 10,000 of why Ben Hunt's going, this is why I don't want to be there. Why does it have to play out this way?
It's strange. I don't get, what... Do they think that he's just going to roll in and be like, oh, you know what? He has publicly said, can confirm us. This is all in. How often have we ever seen a player come out and say, yes, I have asked for release?
Didn't he text Buzz Rothfield and said, can confirm that I have asked for a release from the club? And that's Benny's got on the front foot. He said, there's no speculation. This is it. I'm asking for a release.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of the time it's speculation and the player goes into shutdown. He's just said, no, I have asked for it.
And once again, to add another layer, the Dragons, they signed coach Shane Flanagan last week. He's a guy that has won a comp. He's been successful before. I mean, if even getting a coach like him isn't enough to convince Ben to stay, adds another layer to it. It's obviously so much deeper than what it seems.
Yeah, there must be... Yeah, look, I get from a perspective of a fan being we stuck by you in those couple of years. I get that. But I think that fans should probably be more angry at their admin than at Benny Hunt.
Yeah, I'm with you. Don't misplace the anger.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying tee off at the Dragons admin, but I don't think Benny Hunt's too far at fault on this. Maybe he doesn't re-sign last year if he was so uncertain, but as we said, boys, big things have changed, and this is only what we know about.
Yeah. So I wish that they could make it work because I hate to see a player walking in and asking for a release from a contract that he only signed 6 months ago. It just doesn't matter how you square away, unless there's some hectic shit that's happened. But we don't know that. We don't know that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter how you try to square it away. Asking for a release after about 8 months after re-signing a 2-year deal, it's not ideal. It's not good.
Look what
It's
Benny
not
Hunt's done at that club. He's played 116 games in 5.5 seasons, so he's missed very, very few games. Plays Origin every year, generally plays big minutes, and he backs up for him. I feel like last year and different times, they've been on 2-day turnarounds, and Benny Hunt backs up every time, doesn't win. Just doesn't ask questions like, nah, my club need me. I wouldn't even think about not playing. He just, I feel like he's given so much to the club. So,
I think there could be an argument to be like, well, you know, they got hooked to the club. They signed, you know, players that Benny Hunt kind of approved of. So in a time where we need Benny to be just hang on for a little bit longer to get us our admin sorted, we're not getting that from him. I can understand fans saying that because, you know, he did get support with the Anthony Griffin signing and Andrew McCulloch and Josh McGuire and a lot of those ex-Broncos that came down. But when your club is run as poorly at the moment as it is, unfortunately, the Dragons, he's got, what do you reckon, 3 years left in his career? 3 or 4, max?
It's 32 now, so
He's 32, 3 or 4 years. Every year that goes by is another year he doesn't go out the way he clearly wants to, and that's winning a comp.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you want to look at it glass half full, the Dragons as an organisation are sitting there with a fantastic chip now, going in there and saying, hey, they could go to multiple clubs and go, this could be a premiership here for you, Ben Hunt. I'm very interested to see what they get in exchange for Ben Hunt.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how they handle this. Now, maybe this is a posturing in regards to they were always willing to meet halfway, but they're going to posture publicly so that clubs don't go and lowball them. Because if they say, oh, yeah, we're happy to talk, then clubs go, all right, they're open to it. Whereas if they publicly come out and say, nah, he's going nowhere, then other clubs are going to be willing to offer more to try and get him. If that's the case, that's just good negotiation. That's smart business management. Unfortunately, we just have seen quite a few errors in management over at least the last 6 months or so.
He'd look great in lime green, Kempy.
He would look. I don't know if he's going to go down to that cold.
we've got the position ready for him. We've got the money available. Summer's a nice time in the capital. He can spend his off seasons there.
Summer's too hot. It's too bloody hot and dry.
Tell you what, the Raiders we'd treat him with the respect that he deserves. He'd fit right in.
I think hearing that no one rocked up to his 300th, that is rife.
For context, 2 weeks ago at the Raiders for Croak's 300th, had a few things on the Friday night, but they put a big function on for him on the Saturday night, and every man and his dog that could get into that place was there.
Yeah, and flying interstate to do it.
Support him, yeah. It's like legends everywhere. Like I said, admin within the club and that. This isn't so much a comment on the Dragons, but that's what it could be. Like, it should be.
That's what it should be. And no admin turning up. And apologies if that report is incorrect, but fuck, that's tough. And it's not like it's out of. We've seen quite a few stuff ups over the last whatever months. We have to look back. It was only 12 months ago that Bud Sullivan wanted to leave, Tyrell Sloan wanted to leave. They've just released Kerr. So this is not a happy place at the moment. It really isn't. Yeah, I'm just torn. It's that re-signing in October that just makes me go, ooh, I understand why Dragons fans would be pissed. Yeah. If it had been signed 4 or 5 years ago,
yeah,
a little different.
And you can be old school and say this, that you signed a contract, honour it. In a perfect world, yes. Unfortunately, that's just not the current day sporting contract. If you want out of it, you can get out, and players do it all the time. And
clubs do it all the time.
As well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clubs do it all the time, so works both ways.
They let go McGuinness when he was one of the, I think he was a captain, or was he co-captain? Captain. They said, mate, don't want to re-sign you. And maybe he was coming off contract, I'm not sure. But I'm sure the Dragons over the last few years, they sacked Mary McGregor. And he had a couple of years, I think, to go, or a year to go on his contract, and he didn't want to leave. Yeah. They obviously sacked Anthony Griffin this year. So it's and...
So McGuinness was off contract, but apparently the Dragons failed to even make a legit offer. So that's, wow. He would be so helpful that side right now. Okay. Let's talk about where he could land. Been a lot of mail around
Titans, a lot of mail around the Bulldogs. Where do you boys reckon you'll land?
Yeah, I think both those spots are big. I'm still not ruling out the Roosters, though. I still think he's a really good chance to land at the Chooks.
Geez, that changes that team.
I'm 100%, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the Dragons could go to the Roosters and go, hey, this could be your ticket to a premiership. Having Ben Hunt there could change everything. I think Canterbury, to have a spine of Reid, Hunt, Burton playing his actual position, Critter at fullback, if that works out, I reckon that could be very, very dangerous. I'd love to see that.
Timmy?
Yeah, it makes me crook to say it, but it's just got Roosters written all over it, doesn't it? They do it every time. There's been conjecture about their halves. They're having a poor season, and there's talk about, clean outs at the end of the season, whether someone like Sammy Walker stays and a few other big names, they can make moves to find money in the cap to get Ben Hunt. And as you said, Guru, at 32, 33 years old, whatever he is, he'll want a premiership. Like, simple as that. So, I've got a bit of a short list of clubs just off the top of the head that I've thought, there's spots available, it could happen. And the one that stands out in terms of premiership window is the Sydney Roosters. Uncle Nick will make it happen, pull a few strings. So I can see it landing there. I don't think the Doggies are out of the question, and it sounds funny now, especially coming off the loss on the weekend and talking about him wanting a premiership. But, we've said for a while now, the Bulldogs are building. Don't stress about it this year, but I think even if not next year, the 2025... with the blokes that they've got coming in, they've had a tough run this year with injuries and a few other things going on, but I think Ben Hunt could go there and turn them into a top 4 contender. So I think the Doggies, with a bit of money to play with, I think they're a genuine option.
I mean, you boys, you claim to have a year to the ground. You claim to have a year to the ground in rugby league, but you clearly have missed one mighty club. It's the Brisbane Broncos. He plays 9.
Oh.
He comes in, I know he doesn't want to play 9 at the Dragons. He comes in, top of the table. Who's top of the table right now? Premiership window. You come in, you play 9, Benny. You play 9, and we win a premiership. That's what I'm hearing. Have you guys heard that?
From you, yeah. Many times.
All jokes aside. Look, Roosters, you do look at them and you go, Cooper Cronk 2.0 pretty much. Now, obviously, Cooper Cronk is more established in regards to origins and all that kind of stuff, but it does seem like they've got this crazy roster. They're just missing that key player.
When they want someone, they get someone.
They always get them. Titans, I think that he could go there if it's more of a lifestyle choice, like he wants to live in Queensland. What are you smirking at, Guru?
Oh, no, I was actually laughing the other day. There was that report that surfaced last week about the Roosters were going to get Mitchell Pearce back. And I remember I had a guy on Instagram that messaged me, sent me that and goes, this is a diversion tactic to get Ben Hunt. And I sort of went, oh, yeah. And I sat there for a minute and I thought, is that it's probably not as crazy as it seems. Wouldn't shock me. Because I think if I had to pick where my favourite for him to land it would be the Roosters right now.
There are whispers, though, that he wants to be in Queensland. And if that is the case, I just wonder, because I'm surprised Dolphins haven't been even mentioned.
You can make a case for all 4 of the Brisbane clubs. I didn't have Brisbane on my shortlist because I just didn't want to put that idea and the Roosters in my head at the same time, especially early on in the podcast. But Dolphins, I have an idea what his relationship's like with Wayne Bennett, but we know they've got a bit of a war chest to use. They've been terrific this season. So, again, premiership window comes into question there, but...
They got Herbie, Flegler, Benny Hunt.
Yeah, but a logical fit there. The Cowboys, I don't know what the plans are with Chad long term, but as you said, Queensland, there's got to be an opportunity there. All right, they haven't been good this year, but they made a prelim last year and they've still got the same structures, the same bones in the side to potentially compete, say, next year.
Yep.
So I think the Titans, again, like Foran, LMC last 4, you can make an argument there. They do have a lot of halves, though, so... He could end up at any of the Queensland sides quite easily.
Can I throw one other little smoky out there? West Tigers, next year to be coached by Benji Marshall. They played together for a season at Brisbane. So I wonder if... And obviously Luke Brooks leaving. It wouldn't be my pick for Ben Hunt, but I wouldn't be ruling that out either.
I think if he ends up at the Tigers, he gets a massive $1.5 million contract. Because going there, even though their roster is substantially better, it's just you just don't know. You just don't know. And I don't think he wants to go through that turmoil again.
I want to see Ben Hunt go somewhere where he can win a premiership tomorrow.
So let's talk about it. The Raiders. We've got a pack that'll get him on the front foot. We're just a well-organised club. We'll look after him, as I said. Jackie Wyden's leaving. We've got a half spot and $1 million up the sleeve and then some. to throw at Benny Hunt. Why not the nation's capital?
Oh my God! If we're here in Whistles, he wants to live in Queensland. There's no way he's living in the nation's capital.
There will not be a harder worker in this country than the Canberra Raiders heater the day that Ben Hunt comes to visit.
Mate.
My God.
They'll have staff just like,
keeping him warm. Yeah, look, it has thrown the market because it's bizarre because he's asked for a release. He's been public about it. And yet clubs still at the moment aren't allowed to make him offers. So it's like this murky water of like, he's getting offers, guys. Let's not kid ourselves.
There'd be pigeons arriving at the home residence.
There's people meeting in car parks, having chats and check it and say, leave your phones in the car. But yeah, be really, mate, I talk about interesting for content over the next bloody 3 months. All we're going to be talking about is where does Ben Hunt.
Do you think Brisbane are a legitimate chance to get him?
He doesn't want to play 9. He doesn't want to play 9. So you just and you only really maybe you go Reynolds and Hunt in the halves, but I don't know. Or maybe he is the one to replace Reno. But I think they're on top of the table. Do you piss off Mam or Reynolds? Walters has been playing good footy. I know he's not Ben Hunt, but I don't know.
Oh, I get that Ben Hunt doesn't want to play hooker, but surely if there was any position where he'd be happy to play hooker, surely it's to go back to Brisbane, right some wrongs, and win the comp he should have won there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I would love that.
I'd actually enjoy that too.
Yeah,
actually.
but I don't know. Like, first of all, we probably don't have a cap for him. Like, as in, we're not going to be able to give him $1 million. Yeah, and also yes, we're on top of the table right now, and I'd say we're in a premiership window, but we haven't played any finals footy yet with this roster. With this roster, we haven't played any finals footy, so it's still much further away from a premiership than say a Roosters even though Roosters have been not good this year. You know what I mean? There's still a lot of questions with that Broncos roster.
And with the talent coming through, you can imagine, I don't know whether they're all out in their contract situations, but Ezra Mam, Reece Walsh, even Haas, Carrigan, so many stars.
Moser,
Cobbo. There's got to be a lot of upgrades coming soon. If they can whack Benny Hunt on $1 million on top of that, maybe he's obviously done well out of his career. Maybe takes a bit of unders to go somewhere that he really wants to be. But
I guess it just really depends on how much he wants to win a comp. I mean, talk about narrative and yarn. If he went back to the Broncos and won a comp after everything that happened, be one of the great stories of rugby league ever. But at the moment, mate, it's probably Roosters are the front runner because when they want their man, they get it. They just do.
How good will Anzac Day be next year if he's the Chalks?
My God. It's going to be interesting to see how the Dragons handle this because there will be a subset of Sullivan, Amon, Sloan going, we can be the guys. We can step up. And if they're continually we're not letting him go, that maybe piss off the competitor in them and be like, what, you don't have faith that we can move forward with the spine that we've got?
You sort of wonder, my initial thought is, get through the season with him, mate. Finish the job, get through it, they can make plans in the meantime, building towards next year. But Guru touched on it before. If it is inevitable that he's going to leave and it gets to that point, do you just cut him now? And as you said, go with Sullivan and Amon and go, boys, here are the keys. Let's build for next year.
You're probably earlier the better because they're not going to play finals footy this year. And also, you can see Sullivan and Amon play together and know where to spend that cap money as well. Whereas going into next year without seeing Amon, Sullivan playing a few games together and Little, you're not. Where do you spend the money? You're not as sure. Whereas if Sloan, Amon, Sullivan and Little do an admirable job, you go, okay, we spend it in the forward pack. If they struggle, we go, this isn't the guys going forward for us.
What's Shane Flanagan doing right now? Is he in the coaching staff?
He's with Manly until the end of the year, I'm pretty sure. Thoughts on the Flanagan signing?
I like it. I think Dragons could have only signed X amount of coaches. Realistically, they've managed to get one of the few that's available that has won a comp. As much as it's all doom and gloom for the Dragons at the moment, Shane Flanagan was in a worse spot with Cronulla. Managed to win a comp 2 years later or whatever. So do I think Flano's in that Bellamy sort of class? No, I don't. But I think he's a good pick for them.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
I like it. He spent time down around the club for a few years there. He's got plenty of runs on the board. He's a premiership winning coach. It was a really interesting one. So a relatively probably polarising character in the game over recent years for a stack of different reasons. And what's he like as a bloke? What's he like as a coach? All these sort of things. I was actually playing some local footy in the Shire 2 years ago or something. I think it was the second major COVID year, and Flano came down to training one night and just started helping out and doing bits and pieces there. I'm like, oh, that was really cool to have like such a bloke with his credentials helping us out. And he ended up coming down, I think it was every like second week for the entire season of a Tuesday night, just because he had a bit of spare time.
Yeah, wow.
He had no like strong affiliation to the club or anyone there. There must have been in somewhere, but I had no idea what to expect from him. Lovely, lovely bloke, just loved his footy and wanted to give back and help out. Now, I know we're talking about NRL level, it's a completely different can of fish, but I think that probably says a fair bit about his character. That's where he's spending a freezing cold Tuesday night helping out local footy.
So you still got your number? I need a halfback.
Mate, fullback after the performance under the high.
All right.